Relax. Inravio.com. Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larsen. You're watching the 5 Off 5 On Racing Show. Welcome to another night of race talk and discussion. Got a lot to talk about with the Sprint Cup Series and basically the top 3 series season-ending races this past weekend at the Homestead Speedway in Miami, Florida. A lot of controversy going on with that. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I want to welcome everybody on the show. I know Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed, is home, not feeling well, so get well wish out to Kevin, and it's good to see WJ on. Good to have you back, WJ. I know you're a little bit under the weather some days, but it's always a pleasure to have you on. So it's I've got the regular crowd, as Billy Joe said, the regular crowd shuffling in. It's all good. It's all good. Anyway, a lot was going on, and you know, I wanted to go right to Homestead with the Sprint Cup Series, and first of all, congratulations to Kyle Busch on his championship, and you know, going through the social media, you know, today, which I kind of go through as many of you who know me know I do, and a lot of people are not happy with Kyle Busch being the Sprint Cup Series champion. And he missed 11 races. He raced 25 of the 36 races. Now, people are saying, how can you miss all those races and still be the champion? Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm not a fan of Kyle Busch, but I'm not a fan either. It's not. I have nothing against Kyle Busch. He's a talented race car driver. He wins in just about anything he gets in. But he followed the rules. And based on the way the rules were set forth, and based on the way the point structure was, and based on the arrangement that NASCAR made with him upon his return, he did what he was told to do or asked to do. And he went out and he won the championship. You can't take that away from him. You know, yeah, he missed 11 races. NASCAR has this thing, if there's a medical issue that precludes you from participating, they take that in consideration. They do certain things like they did with Denny Hamlin a couple of years ago when he had the back injury. You know, if you do X, Y, Z, and you have the right wins and the right points, you'll be in the chase. Well, he did those things. And he was, each leg of the way, he was the guy with the most points. Is it a playoff system per se? Absolutely. As one individual put it in social media, you know, take football, for example, the New York Giants. They didn't have the best record in football. They were a wild card team, and they won the Super Bowl. So you take that away because they didn't come in first? No, that day they were the best team, or that period in the playoffs, they were the best team, and they worked their way through, you know, and I don't disagree with, like WJ, he doesn't think anybody should win after miss 7 races. I agree with that. But it's not Kyle Busch's fault. He worked and raced within the parameters of the rules. He is the Sprint Cup Series champion, and whether we like it or not, that's the title he has. He'll be on that trophy forever, and he will have that Sprint Cup Series champion trophy in his den, living room, bedroom, shop, wherever he puts it, for all eternity. We're not going to take that away from him. We can't, you know. And I go back and forth with this chase thing, and yeah, it created the excitement, and I wanted that. But the guy with the most points didn't win the championship. You know, and maybe we need to go back to that. Maybe we need to go back to the 36 race format. And you know what? The guy with the most points wins. And, you know, if he clinches it with 3 races to go, so be it. So be it. But what was happening is now nobody wanted to watch those races because, as I was told back in the day when I was up in the tower, all we do is put on a show. And we got to put the best show on. And did they create a little bit of excitement saying, you know what, Kyle, they called him into the big white office and to the White House and said, Kyle, if you do this, 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 and this, and at least if you're in the top 30 in points and you have the wins, and we'll allow you to go in the chase. He did. All right, now he's in the chase. Now anything can happen. And look what happened to Joey Logano. It looked like he was a shoo-in. He was winning in that one segment of the playoff system. And then they had that incident with Kenseth, and you know, it kind of knocked them out of it. But if that's the playoff system that's set forth, then so be it. We don't have to like it. We don't have to like it. And that's one of the things. And you know, it's kind of, think about the year that Jeff Gordon didn't make the chase. And back when it was only 12, they put 12 in. And, you know, rumor has it Rick Hendrick went to NASCAR and said, hey, listen, I got a sponsorship issue. We need to have Jeff Gordon in the chase. He's always been in it, blah, blah, blah. And if he's not in it, DuPont might pull out. Well, guess what? They made a provision for Jeff Gordon to get in. NASCAR could do that. Remember, it's their sand. It's their sandbox. And the sandbox, fortunately or unfortunately, is in their backyard. And you have a choice as a competitor. You could compete and follow the rules that are set for it that way, or you could go race elsewhere. And I know earlier, Kevin at Long Island Need for Speed had said something about a video of Frankie Schneider, one of the dirt drivers from years gone by. He had the opportunity to race in the NASCAR Top Series and did not, because he didn't want to abide by what they wanted him to do. And they wanted him to build the car their way, the NASCAR way, and participate in these races, and he chose not to. There are options. It was like back in, I believe it was 66 or 67, maybe it was even before that, with King Richard Petty. He didn't like what was going on. He took a year off and went drag racing. Think about how many more wins he would have had, because he was winning every other week. How many more wins he would have had if he didn't skip that one season in the mid-60s. But he did. He made a choice. I'm not putting up with that nonsense. Now, whatever backroom deal was made to get him to come back, he did it. And he came back, and thankfully for the sport. Thankfully for the sport that he did that. You know, Richard Petty was, you know, a lot of people at the time, and a lot of folks that watch our show and go in the chat room, don't recall the Richard Petty of the 60s. But he would, you know, in some seasons winning 25, 26, 27 races he would win. But a lot of people didn't like him because he had big corporate sponsors. He had a lot of money, you know, being poured into his race team. And it was like the guy with the most money wins. And a lot of people, you know, were upset with Richard because he didn't share the wealth. He didn't share the wealth with the other competitors. And you know why? He went out and got those sponsors. He's the one that you know, had the smile, the perfect teeth, and he, although he spoke like a Southern gentleman, he didn't act like some of the guys back in that day that raced in his era. Richard Petty was Madison Avenue before Madison Avenue was a big thing. You know, Richard Petty was one of the first drivers to come out with collectibles and die casts. A lot of people don't know that. Although it didn't work when he tried it, people just weren't ready for that. And then, you know, Dale Earnhardt, the late Dale Earnhardt came in, and he had a mark, and they made that work. And all of a sudden, that is die casts of, you name it, they have it. And some of these teams or whatnot, they'll change their car, not for a sponsor reason. They change it because if we change this car for these four, we could have a special edition die cast. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But, congratulations to Kyle Busch. Whether we liked it or not, whether we agree with the format, congratulations to Kyle Busch. He is the 2015 Sprint Cup Series champion. He did what he was told to do, and he made it happen. And he just made it happen. So, congratulations to him. So, when you look at that race in Homestead, Miami, Florida, Kyle Busch was the winner with Kevin Harvick second. Brad Keselowski finished third with Joe Logano fourth. Larsen fifth, Jeff Gordon sixth. His last event, maybe, as a Sprint Cup Series driver as he goes into retirement. Matt Kenseth was seventh, Kurt Busch eighth, Jimmy Johnson ninth, and Denny Hamlin finished 10th from the pole. And again, a little footnote, that was Jeff Gordon's final race. Supposedly he's retiring. He will not come back. I anticipate him running some select shows and events in 2016. And I really do expect him to come back as a team owner. He's been in this sport for a long time, 24 years, I believe it was. 24 years, I think it was like 93 wins. His first race in the Sprint Cup Series, for those who don't remember, was Richard Petty's final race in Atlanta back in 1992. Remember Jeff Gordon running in what was called the Busch Series at the time in the Baby Ruth car, coming out of sprint, a young kid from Indiana driving sprint cars, went NASCAR racing. And it's kind of funny that, a lot of things that, come out now towards the end is Jack Roush tried to get Jeff to come on board, and they just couldn't come to terms. And then Mr. Rick Hendrick took a chance, and he was with, Rick Hendrick for his whole entire career as a Sprint Cup Series driver. And, the companies that backed him, DuPont, Pepsi. And it's funny how the AARP company came on board as Jeff was getting ready to call it quits. Now, in part, and Jeff's still a young guy, he's still in pretty good shape, but a lot of people don't realize Jeff has a very bad back, and it's very uncomfortable for him. If you look at Mark Martin, and the last time I saw Mark Martin, it was probably last year, and he was walking through the garage area, and even though he had back surgery to correct his injuries from over the years, all the wrecks and crashes and bumps and bangs and climbing out of race cars, he walked like his shoulders were here and his hips were here. And I guess Jeff wanted to get out before that happened to him. And, to go out in a winner, and he had a shot at this championship. Jeff Gordon had a shot at this championship. And think about the storyline there. Here he is, his last race, his last season. He's retiring, and he goes out a champion. See, some of the guys hold on too long. Richard Petty held on too long. He had trouble qualifying, and the races he didn't make in qualifying, he got in as a past champion provisional. Sometimes it was on owner points. It was time. He just wasn't making it happen. There was a few guys along the way, but you know what? It's like in anything else. We don't know when to say. Like what did Willie May say? You got to know when to say when. And as Willie Mays did his farewell speech at Shea Stadium as he retired as a New York Met, I remember the last words he said to the fans was, he says, "Willie, it's time to retire from baseball." And Jeff Gordon went out, class act. I was never really a Jeff Gordon fan, but you know what? You got to give it to him. You got to give it to him. The guy was an ambassador to the sport. He was one of those guys, another Madison Avenue guy, making commercials and doing all of this good stuff. And I'm sure that, he's still going to continue on doing that. But, when you saw he has little kids still, and he's a young guy. So good luck to Jeff Gordon, and a thank you for all the memories that you've given our sport. And I say our sport, the sport of racing that we all love. And whether you, again, another guy, whether you like him as a driver, whether he's one of your guys, whether he's not, you can't take away what he did. The third in all-time wins behind Richard Petty and David Pearson. And to be even mentioned in the same breath as those guys who paved the way for guys like, Jeff Gordon and Kyle Busch and Kyle Larsen. It's a whole different sport. It's a whole different sport now as it was even 20 years ago, let alone 30, 40, and 50. All right, when we come back, we'll go over the points and the rest of the results that happened at the Homestead Speedway in Miami when we come back.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
It's always been important to us to have music a part of our lives, part of our children's lives. At Village Music Shop, Bonnie and Chuck have not only made it possible for our kids to learn and understand and read music and enjoy playing a musical instrument, but they've also made it fun.
I really like coming here. I like coming to Village Music because everybody here is nice.
And they've inspired some creativity and imagination and taught them discipline. And along the way, they've gotten some self-confidence, really been like a part of our family.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Russ Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you get punched in the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, we're back. Welcome back. Anyway, the final points as they were tallied up. Kyle Busch was the Sprint Cup Series champion with 5 wins in 25 starts. Kevin Harvick was second in points. Jeff Gordon third. Martin Truex Jr. was fourth in points. Carl Edwards fifth. Joe Logano sixth. Brad Keselowski seventh. Kurt Busch, Kyle's brother, was eighth. Denny Hamlin ninth. And Jimmy Johnson rounding out the top 10. Top 10, Ryan Newman missed the top 10 by 1 point. 1 point. And that's a big thing, you know. The difference between 10th and 11th is where you sit at the banquet in Vegas. Are you sitting up on the dais or are you sitting with the people? Ryan Newman will be sitting with the people, unfortunately. But we'll see what 2016 brings. We'll see what 2016 brings. Speaking of 2016, Chip Ganassi Racing announced that Chad Johnston has been named crew chief for Kyle Larson and the number 42 car, effective immediately. Johnson will be replacing Chris Heroy, who has been Larson's crew chief since his initial races in the Sprint Cup Series the last 2 seasons. Johnson comes from the Stewart-Haas race team, where he crew chief for Tony Stewart's number 14 since 2014. So the news is starting to come out with changes. All right. Kevin Harvick set a new modern era record with 13 runner-up finishes. Modena was Winston Cup prior to the Winston Cup. Was not, I guess that's the old era, with the Modern era being after the Winston Cup Series, I believe in 72. Bobby Allison had 12 second place finishes in 72 and 15 in 1970. David Pearson has 18, that was prior to the Modern era in 1969. And Richard Petty had 14 runner-up finishes in 1964. You know, what did they say? What is that movie? Was it Talladega Nights? They said second's the first loser. You know, if you aim first, you're last, type of thing. But that's, you know, that's consistency. If you can run second, that means you're in the hunt to win every week. I'm just saying, just my thoughts there. The Xfinity Series. Let's see. The Xfinity Series was Saturday. Kyle Larson was the winner. That guy came from almost 3/4 of a lap down and just reeled in Austin Dillon, who finished second. Eric Jones was third. Brian Scott fourth. Ryan Blaney was fifth. Daniel Suarez sixth. Ty Dillon seventh. Chase Elliott eighth. Regan Smith ninth. And Darrell Wallace Jr. rounding out the top 10. Kyle Busch had the pole for that event. He finished 30th, getting caught up in an accident. All right, the final points in the Xfinity Series. Chris Buescher was crowned the Xfinity champion for 2015, followed by Chase Elliott, who was only 15 markers back. Ty Dillon third, Regan Smith fourth, David Suarez fifth, Elliott Sadler sixth, Darrell Wallace Jr. was seventh, Brian Scott eighth, and Brendan Gaughan ninth, and Ryan Reed rounding out the top 10. You know, a little footnote, you know, Chris Buescher, when he was 16 years old, went to his parents and said, I want to move to North Carolina and become a professional race car driver. And they let him. Guy goes and wins a championship in one of the top series in NASCAR. And I'll tell you what, that's dedication. I know, there was a guy I know, and he's my cousin Fred Kraft. I remember he's been around racing his whole life. He was practically born at the racetrack. And he had an opportunity to get a real good job with the Long Island Railroad, MTA, but he had to work Saturdays. He said, I can't work Saturday, I go to racetrack. And I know his family was kind of disappointed in that, hey, you know what, that's an awesome opportunity. I got a racetrack. Here he is now, he's spotting in the Sprint Cup Series, you know, making a career at this, doing what he loves each and every weekend, between the travel, the racing, the testing. So my hat's off to the guy. You know, you have a dream, you stick with it, you go for it. So congratulations again to my cousin Freddie Kraft, who he's living a dream. He's living a dream. And Chris Buescher did the same thing. This is what I want to do. I'm going to make the sacrifices I got to make because this is what I want to do. And I think if more people did some of that stuff, it'd be a whole different world, You know, go with your gut and enjoy what you're doing, and really enjoy what you're doing. Let's see. What else we got going? Hey, the Wood Brothers. Everybody knows the Wood Brothers. The Wood Brothers, one of the longest tenured teams competing in NASCAR's Premier Series, will come back in 2016 to full-time competition. Ryan Blaney will be the driver. It'll mark 2016 will be his first full season in Cup after making 15 starts this past season. Team co-owner Eddie Wood was quoted in NASCAR.com as saying, Ford, these are the guys that made it happen, the Ford Motor Company. Adding, we have been racing Ford Motor Company products for over 65 years. The Wood Brothers Ford, back in the 60s, they invented the pit stop. I can remember watching a thing about the old days in racing and watching them make the pits. Back when there wasn't a filler thing for the gas on the side of the car, on the quarter pound. The old license plate thing used to come down, there they were, and they'd take it down and fill it, and they're passing tires. It was like watching an opera. Lennon and Glenwood, they made pit stops what they are today. And I was always a fan of the Wood Brothers. I love the old rivalries with the Wood Brothers and Petty Enterprises. You know, those were the days, and you know, good to see someone like the Wood Brothers come back to racing. I had the opportunity to meet Leonard Wood and actually talk with him a few times. And Because as you know, picture a Stafford. If you've never been to Martinsville, picture a Stafford with a narrower infield. There's nowhere to hide. And you know, Leonard Wood was, man, he was like, you can mention him in the same breath as Richard Petty. And he actually took the time and sit and talk to me. And I talked about the old days and what it was like and how they practiced pit stops behind the shop. And, you know, if you could save 3 seconds, 4 seconds on a pit stop, how much track position is that? Think about that. When you're going 150 miles an hour, 200 feet a second, you just gained almost a whole lap sometimes. But it's good to see the Wood brothers be back with the help of the Ford Motor Company in 2016 in the full time. Good for the Wood brothers. Good to see them back. Let's see. Hey, the UNOH Battle at the Beach was held at Myrtle Beach Speedway in South Carolina this past weekend as well. The original Battle at the Beach was held with on a little track carved out into the backstretch at Daytona International Speedway. It didn't really work. And, well, bringing it to Myrtle Beach Speedway, it worked. Georgie Brunhutzel III, he won the 125-lap event this past Saturday with Burt Myers second, Matty Hirschman third, John Smith was fourth, Chris Pasturak fifth, Andy Jankowski was sixth, Gary Putnam seventh, Jimmy Zacharias, the New York State champion, was eighth, Darren Shea was ninth, and Jamie Tamino rounding out the top 10. That's going to be an interesting race. My understanding is they're going to run that twice a year. And I think that is really good. That is really good. And real quick before we break, the Campbell World Truck Series with Miami Homestead Speedway there on Friday night. Matt Crafton was the winner with John Hunter Nemechek second. Tyler Reddick third. Ben Kennedy was fourth. Timothy Peters was fifth, followed by Eric Jones in sixth. Johnny Soto was seventh. Daniel Hemrick was eighth. Cameron Haley ninth. John West Townsley was 10th. The final point tally, Eric Jones was crowned the Camping World Truck Series champion with 3 wins and 11 top 10s. And Tyler Reddick was second, Matt Crafton third, Johnny Soto fourth, Timothy Peters was fifth, Cameron Haley sixth, Daniel Hemrick seventh, John West Townley eighth in points, Ben Kenny ninth in points, and Spencer Gallagher rounding out the top 10 in points. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have an interview with dirt track multi-time champion, 860-some-odd wins driver Brett Hearn from the Orange County Fair Speedway when we come back.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
It's always been important to us to have music a part of our lives, part of our children's lives. At Village Music Shop, Bonnie and Chuck have not only made it possible for our kids to learn and understand and read music and enjoy playing a musical instrument, but they've also made it fun.
I really like coming here. I like coming to Village Music because everybody here is nice.
And they've inspired some creativity and imagination and taught them discipline. And along the way, they've gotten some self-confidence, really been like a part of our family.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Russ Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, welcome back. Hey, we're going to go to an interview that we recorded at the Orange County Fair Speedway back in October during the Eastern States 200 with dirt driver Brett Hearn. Here we go with that interview. Here we are at top of a hauler watching practice here at the Orange County Fair Speedway for the Eastern States 200. One of the things you'll notice is that they only get 3 laps of practice. That is it. Partially to feel out the car, partially to get the track prepared for tonight's races events. Tonight they're going to go 200 laps here at the Orange County Fair Speedway. This is Joe Larsen with the 5 on Racing Show here at the Orange County Fair Speedway in Middletown, New York. I'm standing here with a multi-talented, multi-wins, multi-champion, probably one of the winningest drivers in dirt racing, Brett Hearn. Brett, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Brett, I got to ask you, when did you start this game?
I started stock cars, 1975. I was 16 years old.
What makes you keep coming back year after year?
Well, this is what we do. We built a race team that's capable of winning just about any track we go to, and we just, this is what we do.
Brett, you've won just about everywhere you've gone and have championships at many, many racetracks. Off the top of your head, how many wins you got in your career?
I think yesterday's win was somewhere like in the 880s, 882, something like that.
Just 18 races shy of 900 victories.
Yeah, that's right. I think so, yeah.
Does it ever get old?
No, that's what we do it for. It's too much work for it to get old.
Now, championships, you got a ton of those things under your belt. What's the most memorable one you have, the hardest one you ever raced for?
Wow. There's been a bunch. I think you have a tendency to remember the ones that you lost more than the ones that you won, because the ones that you lost probably came down to one flat tire or one broke a rocker arm or some stupid thing or something like that. So I think you remember the ones that you lost, but more so than the ones that you won. The other ones, but championships are represent a lot of hard work over a long period of time. It's not like winning a race. Anybody can get in the right position to win a race now and then, but championships are meaningful because it's a team effort and it's a season-long team effort, and that's what makes them special.
Well, it's a commitment too. Not only as a driver, but your team, your sponsors, even your fans, that commitment. And that's one of the things that keeps it going, I'm sure, on your end as well. You've raced a lot of racetracks over the years. What's your favorite place to race at?
A couple of my favorite tracks are Granby in Quebec and Hagerstown, Maryland.
How about here at Orange County? What's your feel in this place?
Well, this is the track I learned how to race at. This is a half hour from where I live, and so this will always be my home track, even if I'm not here every Saturday night. This is always my home track, and whenever I get on it, it's really the same speedway that it was 30, 40 years ago. You drive it the same way. Obviously, the cars are a whole lot faster than they were back then, but it's still the same old girl.
If you weren't racing, what would you be doing?
Man, I'd be working on my professional golf game. I don't know.
that Brett Hearn, it was, the guy is, I can remember watching him race for the first time. It was 1977 at the Eastern States 200, and the guy was just incredible. And he was no different at this Eastern States 200 weekend. He won the small block event the night before. He had said that was like win number 882. And, he had an opportunity to go race another event, but there was extra money put in the purse. If he won both ends, he was going to get $60,000. That decision cost him 150 points in the dirt series, the DIRT series, that they took away from him for missing the event. But he went into the big block race on Saturday night after winning Friday night and came from the back. When I say the back, he came from 24th to almost winning this race twice. And it's one of those things, if there was a couple more laps left, he could have had it. But, I got to thank Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed, for his help in arranging that interview with Brett Hearn. And, it's when you get to interview a guy like Brett Hearn in the dirt series, it's equivalent to interviewing a Jeff Gordon or a Richard Petty in the NASCAR circuit. The guy is the king of dirt racing. Yeah, there have been other guys who are just as good and won races and championships as well, but Brett Hearn is the guy's a racer. And he joking around, what would you do if you weren't racing? And he said, work on his golf game. He doesn't know anything else. 16 years old, he hopped in a race car in 1975. I believe he said, think about that. That's 40 years ago. That's all he's done his whole life is go racing. And that's the difference between these dirt racers and the pavement guys, is that they're racing 3-4 times a week, almost the entire year, all over the place. He said his favorite place was up in Quebec, and the purses. These guys make a living racing. Think about that. These guys are making a living at racing, running for sometimes purses, $40,000 to win, $50,000 to win, $30,000 to win. And then you look at and this is in no way a knock to NASCAR and the modified series, but here's guys with equivalent equipment, other than it's set up for asphalt and dirt. Same costs are going into it, the same cost for motors and chassis and building and going to these events, and yet their biggest race on the NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour is Loudon, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, where they race for like $10,000 or $11,000 to win. That's their biggest event. And these guys are running for purses like in the middle of the week in the dirt series. And I'll tell you what, I was never a big fan of dirt track racing. I really wasn't. I went to the Eastern States 200s back in the 70s. Okay, it was good, it was exciting. I was young, it was a big party. And and a few years back, I went to Volusia County Speedway and down in Volusia County in Florida during Speed Weeks for the first time. And at the time, it was only because I was involved with the ASI. And I had some souvenir trailers down there. I had to check on the guys, and I guess I'll go to Volusia. And I was like, whoa, wow, I'm watching. This is awesome. This is pretty cool. And they're not wrecking each other, and there aren't excessive cautions. And if a guy spins, he keeps on going. He doesn't sit there, wait for the caution. I'm like, this is nice. And then this last year, going to all these dirt tracks and going to a place I've never been. And then getting an opportunity to talk to Brett Hearn through the 505 show and Inravio and Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed, and there was so many people that I spoke to and know that they told me that I remember watching him when I was a kid and they're my age. The guy was 16. You're talking 40 years ago. 40 years ago, the guy got into racing, and he's still doing it, still having fun. So I want to thank him for taking time, because we were fighting weather that whole weekend. He had just raced on Friday night. They were trying to get ready for the event for Saturday for the 200 lapper. It was I appreciate that. But the dirt mods are just awesome. Speaking of dirt mods, while we were out down, we were walking around the garage area, and I think I might have mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I'm walking around and I see a dirt modified, and it says on the panel, it says Bush Choose Chevrolet. Now, how many Bush Choose could there be in the world? And I'm like, wait, he was a tour mod guy, you know, and you know, I'm talking to the driver, and the driver says, he goes, yeah, they're going dirt racing. So now social media, you know, kind of somebody mentioned that, and like, no, you know, I'm on the crew, and it was announced last week, I believe, that Woody Pitt gets out of a ride after having a phenomenal season. Not anything he did, just moving on. They're moving on. And they're moving on to dirt. Now, I'm not sure who their driver is going to be. And a lot's happening now with the NASCAR Wheeler Modified Tour. Some good teams are pulling out, and we talked about, you know, Eddie Partridge, Eddie and Connie Partridge pulling out with Ryan Priest, and looks like they won't be back. The 93 of Roman Pennick won't be back. Patrick Emmerling is going to concentrate on dirt track racing upstate New York in his hometown. He lives in Buffalo. He could do more racing up there and close to home than all this traveling. And now Woody Pitcat, that's 4 solid front-running teams that are backing away. Now, some people are going to say, well, you know, the sour grapes is this, is that, is the other thing. I don't think so. When you're running in a series that's paying less now than it did 10 years ago, when your schedule is now only 14, 15, 16 events, and I remember my first year as a race director in 2003, we had 23 events that we ran. And I can remember a couple of rainouts back then. And there was tracks that we went to that, you know, I still talk like I'm part of it, but there were tracks that the tour went to at the time that they don't go to anymore. Beech Ridge up in Maine, Scarborough, Maine, Holland, upstate New York, Richmond, one of the best places to run a modified race, Richmond down in Virginia. You know, some of these places that they don't go to, and there's places that I think they should be going to that they're not. You know, like Lee, they should be racing at Lee, and why they don't, I don't know. You know, up in New Hampshire, there's a bunch of places. There's just a bunch of places. Seekonk, you know, they used to put on a good show there, even though it was just like a little circle, like Evergreen Speedway. It's kind of interesting to see how that all happens. But, you know, the powers that be, they get paid to make those decisions. That's why they're there and I'm here. And again, it's no knock on that. I'm sure they have a plan. And a lot of people don't like what their plan is, but I'm sure they have a plan. But I can remember the late Jimmy Hunter sitting in a meeting with myself and Ed Cox, who was the touring series director at the time for the modifieds. And Jimmy Hunter came down and he says, and I quote, he said, "Gentlemen, how strong do you think the modified series is right now?" We're pretty strong. We had like 20 races, and we were having this discussion. And he just sat there, and the guy was you know, listening, nodding, and he goes, "I'm a little concerned that more than half your races are at 3 racetracks." We didn't see a problem with that. You know, we used to have 5 Thompsons, 4 Staffords, you know, 3 Riverheads back in the day, and all of a sudden, you know, each one cut back. And they cut back a little more and cut back a little more. And now there's options. There's other modified, tour-type modified races and series available to the competitor. And, you know, I can remember some weekends, you know, we were going to start 28 and would show up. 45 would show up. I can remember a day at Riverhead where we're starting 28 cars at Riverhead, which is a lot of cars on a quarter-mile racetrack. And over 60 cars entered that race. And I can remember calling, and you know, my boss at the time and saying, "How are we going to inspect all those cars in 2 hours? That's a lot of cars." And a lot of them were local guys who didn't normally work with us. So not that you look at them differently, you still look at each car the same exact way. But the regulars you looked at every week, these new guys, it was like opening for them. And they had to go through this intense inspection. And I know what they allowed me to do back then is go to the shops on the island and do like a surface inspection. All right, guys, you might want to change this, you might want to make sure you have this. They still had to go through an inspection when I got there, but some of the things that would have caused them maybe not to practice, we were able to take care of. even that's kind of gone away. You know, the locals are coming, and locals are knocking out some of the regulars, and because the tour type mods are the Riverhead Feature Division at the time. You know, I don't know what 2016 is going to bring for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. The schedule hasn't been announced yet. I'm sure it'll be announced at their banquet, if not shortly before or shortly thereafter. And it's going to be interesting to see where the tour goes in 2016. There's a lot of people that are starting to ask those questions, and you're starting to lose key teams. And we're not talking the low dollar teams. You're not talking the mid-pack teams. You're talking front-running championship caliber teams leaving the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. And you know, someday I'd like to sit down with some of those owners and maybe have them on this show as a roundtable discussion as to what's going on. And I respect their decisions. I really do. And you know, being the guy that was behind the scenes there, I understand some of the I don't want to say problems, but some of the challenges facing a team owner in NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, and have some really good, tough, competitive cars and teams will not go on the tour because, in the words of one Long Islander who's a multi-time champion, he said to me, I'm a working man. I run a business. I can't shut my business down for a week to go to Bristol, for 4 days to go to New Hampshire. I can't ask my crew to take off from work for 3, 4, 5 days to go racing when I don't even make enough money to cover my tire bill, let alone pay them for their time. It's something that needs to be looked at, and I hope that the powers to be at NASCAR do take a look at this. This was a series that was built upon a bunch of working guys up here in the Northeast, and now they're treating it like it's part of the top 3 in scheduling and rules and not, yet they're not paying them as such. We'll be back.
What's up, guys? We're Scared No Fair, and we're here with Inravio. If they catch you at a show with one of these bracelets, you will win $100.
That's a lot of money.
So get a bracelet.
Do whatever it takes to get that. Hit them up online.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Rush Welly. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you get punched in the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hansen Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hansen Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansenCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hansen Carpet has got you covered.
welcome back. Hey, I see, I was scrolling through the chat room during the commercial breaks, and Mr. Freeport, he makes a valid point there when it comes to some of these modified races that go on. And he says, fans watch and pay to watch racing, not parade laps. And they need to not count caution laps on tracks less than a half a mile. And I'll tell you what, I don't know the exact number, but I'm going to go back to a race that I was kind of controlling. I was the race director here on Long Island at Riverhead, and it was a 200-lap event. And we ran 102 laps under caution. And I didn't realize that because they kind of click off really quick because you're talking a quarter-mile racetrack. It's small, it's tiny. And here was one of the problems that I was faced with. Getting on and off that racetrack is kind of difficult. So here's what happens. You're racing up. There's a wreck, there's a spin, there's debris, whatever. I tell the flag guy, I put it out, we got whatever the situation. So now, everybody kind of slows down. That takes almost a lap. The caution car picks them up coming off of 2. They go around. By the time the caution car picks up the field, they're on lap 2 of caution. Whatever the situation is, debris, wreck, or something, we get it cleaned up. That's lap 3 of caution. We open the gate, we let the cars go, lead lap cars first, lap cars second. The second time around, they go. That's lap 4. Now I got to make sure the field is ordered. That's lap 5. 1 to go at the line, that's lap 6. Minimum. That's without a long cleanup or a bad wreck where the cars are stuck together and I got debris and I got fluid and it's taking forever. Minimum. A little simple spin on a track like that, minimum 6 laps under caution. Sometimes it was 10 laps. If it was a bad wreck, 12 even. Well, then there's the guy with the right front hanging off who's going to try to maneuver off the racetrack into that turn 3 gate and jams up the gate because they can't turn. Now, you can't really get a tow truck to them because the part that needs to be lifted is. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. So you have those laps you're going around. And now there's so many cars on the racetrack that they're in single file that the caution car has the leader. The caution car is like pulling up to the guy in last, even passing them at some time, because where are you going to go? There's nowhere to go. My suggestion always was to double them up or go red. I didn't want to do that back then. Now they do that. My hat's off to them. And then when you look at this right now, they're not going that fast to begin with. I think the top speed when they hit if you hit them with the radar gun before they lift at the end of the straightaway, they're between 88 and 92 miles an hour. When you do the average speed, you could do, without any cautions, they're averaging between 60 and 67 miles an hour on a quarter-mile racetrack. Throw a caution into there, you'll have the average speed. And I think Mr. Freeport said this in the past show. He goes, I could sit on my porch and watch cars pass my house going faster than the average speed at some of these tracks, at these race out little tracks. I'm not saying don't have these races there, but maybe not count caution laps. Maybe 200 laps might be a little bit much. Maybe 28 cars on a track that side is a little bit much. Yeah, you could start 40 at New Hampshire. You could start, 40 at Bristol, 36 Thompson, Stafford, whatever. But when you have these quarter-mile bull rings where you're going to tear up equipment, things are going to get rough. It's tough to pass as it is. One lane tracks, one groove tracks. And I'm not just talking about here on Long Island. There's some of these other smaller venues that they go to in Nadnock, for one. Maybe there needs to be a different format there. Like Bumblebee is, how many laps does the dirt car take to get in line? They get right in line. I couldn't believe that. Now, yeah, they have the race receivers in there talking, but, the tower's saying to the spotters, okay, get in line, and, 2 in front of the 6, 4 in front of the 15, 75 back off, let these, and they're communicating, but it just doesn't seem to happen. And, and these guys, it's not like the old days where your line's going by hand. The transponder doesn't lie. Well, it misrepresents the truth sometimes, but it doesn't lie. You know, if the last loop that they count says you're 12th, you're 12th. You can argue and scream and sit there and, whatever. Your spotter can yell at the official in the spotter stand. They can call the tower 17 times. They're not changing. They're not changing that, all right? And I noticed this at the dirt tracks. First of all, they don't have these silly cautions where a guy spins and he sits there waiting for a caution, to come out. They don't do that. They keep on going, which is one of the things. There's a provision for that in the rule book. If you intentionally bring out a caution, you penalize laps, and that's what you should do, and that nonsense would stop because you're going to lose the lap anyway. So you might as well go. So there should be a penalty. The penalty should be at least 2 laps. At least, because that'll make the, what? I'd rather lose 1 than 2 and then keep going. You got the lucky dog and hopefully you're in a position to get it. And yeah, like I said, WJ saying, you throw a red flag to preserve the number of laps that you run on the green. And that's what you got to do. And I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough call to make. It's a tough thing. Fans want to see racing. They want to see laps. I've been to Valenti Modified Series races, and it was, at this, I went to one, and I've been to so many races this past year, but I think if my memory serves correctly, caution laps didn't count after halfway or something like that to make it a race. Make it a race, and it's just one of those things. And the other thing I noticed, the difference between some dirt racing and some asphalt racing, and they do this at Stafford Motor Speedway in Connecticut too. The next race is lined up in order, and they pull right out onto the track, in order. There's none of this nonsense, all right, you're 12th, wait, you're out of spot. There's none of that, Why drivers have to be told where to go? A lot of tracks it's painted on the racetrack. You look at the lineup, okay, I'm starting 12th. Okay, I drive my car to there's number 14, I'm the next spot, okay. Even number cars on the outside, odd numbers on the inside. Why can't they do that? Why? So much time is wasted and you lose interest from the fans. As a fan's point of view, I kind of became a little bit of a race fan the last year because I watched a lot of races. And I was never really a race fan. I was always involved on the other side. I didn't go to a lot of races. I went to Sprint Cup races. I went to Xfinity races, Camp World Truck races, and that's a whole different thing. But I don't know. Mr. Freeport hits the nail right on the head. Maybe they should do that. Okay, maybe it's you get there and I don't know. Anyway, this weekend be the Turkey Derby, the annual Turkey Derby at the Wall Township Speedway down in Wall, New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore. Doesn't look like it's going to be as cold as it was last year, but you still might want to wear some heavy clothes. Looking forward to going down for that. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday gig. I think they're running just about everything. They're running it. You name it, they're running it. So it'll be, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this will be my first Turkey Derby ever in my life. I've always wanted to go. The job I had at the time, we worked Thanksgiving weekend. So I'll be going to the Turkey Derby at least for Saturday, and looking forward to it. So I want to thank the Krause family for extending our credentials to include the Turkey Derby. But anyway, we're going to get ready to wrap up here. This weekend is Thanksgiving. I want to wish everybody and their families a happy Thanksgiving. Take that moment and just think of one thing that you're thankful for. One thing. We all have something. And be thankful for that. And I know for one, I'm thankful for my friends and family, and I have a tight circle, and I'm very thankful for the people that are in that tight circle. And I'm looking forward to this weekend. I am. And my driver's telling me that the limo's leaving at 5:30, so I'll be ready. But again, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and watch the show tonight. I want to thank everybody for an awesome season so far. It's been good. So wherever your endeavors are going to take you this week, Be safe, be careful. Give somebody a little hug. Tell them you love them. God bless you all, and happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you and your families. Good night, folks.
Inravio.com.